Let me ask you this. Are you actually training to increase your rugby performance when you're in the gym, or are you just training to feel tired? Because most guys I speak to through Rugby Muscle are doing one of two things. They're either copying whatever they think the pros are doing, or they're sort of just winging it from random gym session and fitness challenges. Neither of these things are going to get you ready to play your best rugby. I know this because I've struggled with this myself. And today I'm going to be breaking down my favorite way to actually bring together strength, power, speed, and conditioning so that you can really reach your ultimate rugby performance. And the funny thing about this is that it's easier than ever, the training that you will be doing won't feel like an actual grind. You'll feel yourself progress from week to week to week. Not only is that encouraging, but it also then shows you what you're doing is working. And I guarantee you, when it comes to the field and comes to when it matters, which is on the rugby pitch, your performance will be even better. Who am I? I'm TJ. I'm the guy behind Rugby Muscle, and this is the Rugby Muscle podcast. We really try to eliminate the fluff, eliminate the confusion, and give you, as amateur rugby players, the best training advice and programs and coaching that we possibly can to help you increase your performance on the pitch. And that starts with understanding the difference between training high and training low and how we can blend those things together. I really do think that this is the thing that makes the biggest difference with the athletes that I work with in Rugby Muscle, and it's the thing that I always see as a problem from players that don't really know what they're doing. So let's get into it. Firstly, what is training high? Training high is where you're going to develop your max strength, your max power, your speed, your explosiveness, all of those things when it comes to making your actions that count, your line breaks, your big tackles, your turnovers, your set pieces. All of those things are done when you are training high, or all of those things are executed better, should I say, when you're training high, right? You're training with intent. You do not want fatigue to interfere with these sessions. You want short, sharp, explosive, intense work followed by however much rest you need. So that is training high. I've only just realized that training high might almost certainly be interpreted as something different. That wasn't my intention. I only realized that when I said it out loud, but we've got our high and we've got our low. And now our high can also be split into two further components. Firstly, we've got train heavy. Reality is you can't win collisions if you're weak. And we're not just chasing one rep maxes here. We're building repeatable strength that will carry over to rugby. So we are looking at our big, heavy compound lifts, your back squats, your bench presses, your pull-ups. I really do like heavy pull-ups as one of my prime movers or my prime exercises. I see bench squat dead because of powerlifting. I like to replace the deadlifts with pull-ups because I really do think heavy pulls are a key component of like grappling when you're trying to manipulate your opponent in ruck situations, in contact. Pulling strength is huge for rugby players. So we're looking at big, heavy compound lifts. We can train 5, 3, 1. We can train heavy top sets. We can train percentages, everything over like 80%. And as long as it's done with real max intent is what we're after. We're not after lots of grindy reps. We're not after heavy sets of 10 that bury you into the ground. We're after real heavy strength training, and then we cut it out. We don't necessarily try to bury ourselves into the ground with this stuff. We want to train this nice and fresh. We want to move some quality weight, tick that box, and then look to improve upon that week over week. We can do this by adding load to the bar, by increasing the weight by 5% or 2.5% or whatever we need to. We can increase the intent, so we can go from RPE 8 to RPE 8.5 to RPE 9. We can even keep it as a heavy top set and hope that the weight increases week to week to week. We can even keep it as one heavy RPE 9 set, but rotate through different lifts over the course of a training block. Lots of different ways that we can build strength using big, heavy compound lifts. The point being here is that we don't need to do anything above like 5 or so reps. We want to make it real intense, real heavy, take our strength gains, and then move on. This is going to be your base. It's what's going to make you a durable athlete, powerful in contact, and harder to knock backwards. It's also going to be a huge part of adding muscle to your frame. as long as you meet the calorie requirements on the other side. Then we've got train fast. So this is when we're looking at our speed and our power focus, because heavy lifting for this, whilst it can get you more powerful, more explosive, and even faster to an extent, because power is a combination of speed and strength. So if we can increase this strength component, then power already will come along for the ride. But we also still need to increase our actual top end speed output, particularly as rugby players, because being fast in rugby, not only just being explosive, but just being fast, being able to sprint really well, is a massive game changer for you as a player. So we do lots of different things to increase our rate of force development. This could be moving light weights fast. This could be moving your body weight. This could be jumping with intent. This could be sprinting with clean mechanics. This could be bounding, could be throwing things. Lots of different ways that we could do it. We can also combine those movements with the lifting heavy that we spoke about before. So we could do box jumps along with heavy squats. We could do bounds before doing our heavy squats. We could do in a separate session some sprint drills, and then, 6 all-out 15-meter sprints. This is what's going to give you that pop. It's going to be the difference between having a decent carry and sort of getting your way maybe 5 yards through the gain line, to seeing a gap in the defense and really going right through it, or seeing a ball that might be open for the poach and getting there and taking that fast action. Becoming explosive is a huge part of being a good rugby player. One of our back rowers actually was already really strong that came on board with Rugby Muscle, but he just didn't feel sharp in games. He could squat well over 200 kilos. Strength was not the issue. So we looked at this training fast. We looked at adding banded jumps to his training. We added contrast work. All of his strength work was contrast work. And then we did a lot of stuff on dynamic effort day. Within 6 weeks, he was bursting through gaps, making dominant hits without changing his strength. In fact, even when we dialed back on his strength, it still went up. His fitness came along for the ride as well, which we'll talk about in a second. And overall, this made a huge improvement to his game in just 6 short weeks. So that's training high. It's all about making your actions within games count as effectively as possible. The other part of this is the opposite. We're talking about training low. This is really where the magic sort of happens behind the scenes. It's not sexy, but it is going to be the reason that you can repeat those high intensity efforts over and over and over again in a game. It's going to be the reason that you can get through so much work in the gym. It's going to be the reason that you can get through so much heavy work during the week and not feel wrecked during the week, at the end of the week, or even during a game after 16 minutes. This is developing your aerobic engine, and it is easily the most overlooked piece when it comes to amateur rugby S&C. So we're not talking about doing random circuits. We're not talking about doing broken Broncos. We're not talking about doing Tabatas or any sort of real hard intervals. That's what most rugby players think that they need to do when it comes to their conditioning. Instead, what we want to do is smart, cyclical, low-intensity aerobic work that builds your base without stealing from your recovery. For me, I like to do lots of running because in a game, everybody runs. Now, for the start of these protocols, if you've never done this before, this might be 1 minute of slow jogging followed by 2 minutes of walking. And you could do that for 30 minutes. That would be fine. And as you first start doing this, you might feel that your legs are quite heavy and they do affect subsequent sessions. Well, once you build out a decent aerobic base, once you get your legs under you, and this won't take more than 2 weeks, you are then going to be able to run for an extended period of time, or walk for an extended period of time, work on your aerobic base, should we say, for an extended period of time, and have that not interfere with your quality strength training that is to come later in the week, or even your rugby training that is to come later in the week. Because we all know about those really hard, grindy rowing sessions that people do where they go as hard as they can for 4 minutes and they repeat that for an hour. And then even the next day, they still feel wrecked. They feel under-recovered. You're never going to be able to train fast or lift heavy with that fatigue that you've carried over from that session. The beauty of training low is that we don't carry fatigue over too much into the next day. We just build quality aerobic work. Now, I mentioned that I like doing these as zone 2 runs, but there's no reason that you can't do it on the bike if that is just as convenient for you. You could do it on the elliptical if you have access to it. You could do it on the rowing machine. I have some clients that prefer to do that bit weird because I hate doing the rowing machine for that long. But if that's something that you enjoy, you can absolutely do that, and you can really get in some quality aerobic work that you'll feel on the rugby pitch. The other way that we can do this is not just through zone 2 work, which can last from 30 to 90 minutes in one single effort. We can also do this by using tempo sprint intervals, where you're working from 15 to 30 seconds at around 70% maximum effort. You're then going to recover for 30 to 60 seconds, and you're going to repeat those efforts over and over. This could be done on a rugby field where you're practicing stepping from side to side, 90-degree angles or something like that. You can get really creative with this stuff. Easiest way to do it is on a rugby field when you're running straight. You can really use this time working at 70% to focus on your form of sprinting. And if you're doing the agility one, your form of planting your foot and driving in the other direction. You can also do this with medicine ball throws, burpees, or on exercise machines such as the bike, such as the rower. You can be creative. There's lots of different ways that you can do it. The key is that we are still training low, because that is where you're going to develop your aerobic system. You're going to develop your cardio. It's called cardio, your cardiovascular system, by working the heart's ability to pump your blood and pump oxygen around your body to supply your muscles, essentially with energy. And this allows us not only to recover from our high intensity actions within a game, but also our high intensity hard training sessions during the week, because then over time, as our aerobic system gets better, we'll lower our heart rate. That means we'll rest better. That means that we'll recover better, and we can then be way more creative during our week, and we can strategically structure it so that we can get the most intensity over the course of the week to allow our hard sessions to make the most improvements. The biggest issue that I find with most rugby players is that they are scared to train easy, and it takes a lot of convincing to do it. Once you have done it for a few weeks and once you felt the difference, it doesn't take any more convincing. People are like, oh my God, what is this magic? Yeah, that's what having a good aerobic system will do to you. One of the centers in rugby muscle could run really fast in a straight line. He could step through gaps. But after 3 phases and within 30 minutes of a game, all of a sudden, it looked like he was running in quicksand. Once we introduced 40 minutes at the beginning, and then we ramped it up to 80 minutes of aerobic work twice a week, his recovery within games and during the week improved massively. Within games, it was like night and day. He could think clearer. He could take more carries. He could keep going for the whole 80 minutes. Within the week, this allowed him to not just have a tough Monday session, but actually train hard on Monday, then on Wednesday, and then on Friday. Overall, this is one of the biggest things that you can introduce to your training week if you don't already do it. And now I'll just touch on how you could blend those things within a given week and how we do that within rugby muscle. You don't need to train every system every day. In fact, you shouldn't do that. Your week should blend these elements of high intensity and low intensity through the week. And then there's 2 main ways we do this at Rugby Muscle. Number 1 is your real basic high-low split. We'll train one day high, the next day low. The next day high, the next day low. And we never do 2 consecutive high days. And this allows us to get the most recovery between our high sessions so that our high sessions can be really high, and on the days that we aren't training that hard, high intensity, we are still getting in quality stimulus through our lower intensity work. The only issue that sometimes this comes up with is when we have rugby players that train on Tuesday and then they have to hit the gym on Monday. Sometimes this is just how your week has to structure and you cannot get around that. But I do like doing a high-low split. Works really well. And the other way we like to do this is through waiving our volume and intensity through the week. So we'll start with real high intensity and low volume. And then as the week goes on, we'll drop that intensity towards the weekend and we'll build up our volume. So this allows us to train mostly the heavier, harder, faster stuff at the beginning of the week, and then mostly the lighter stuff, the endurance stuff towards the end of the week. This means that they don't really interfere with each other, and if anything, they help you recover from the other. So doing the real heavy, powerful work doesn't take away from the aerobic work. It actually will help you recover from that because you're getting a good stimulus, you're getting a good nervous system activation, and then you're going to be able to go back to your aerobic work, go back to your low intensity work at the end of the week. Flip that on its head. The heavy work allows you to get through some quality heavy stimulus at the beginning of the week, and then again, you get your blood flow at the end of the week that will allow you to then be ready, be prepared, be nice and fit to hit your heavier, harder, faster stuff again at the beginning of the week. You can also kind of blend the two. There's lots of different ways to do this, but really I would ask you to really take a look at how you're programming this throughout the week, or of course, offload your training to us here at Rugby Muscle. We would be happy to help you. And that wraps up how we blend together our strength, our power, our speed, and our fitness work within every single week here at Rugby Muscle. Really important to state that you cannot just go hard, and grind yourself into the ground. This system really works not just for the professional athletes. This is what works for amateur rugby players that have lots of stress, that have limited time, and want to get the most from every single given training week. So train high, train low, dominate on game day. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button, hit the thumbs up. Let me know your thoughts. Is this how you train? Let me know in the comments below on YouTube. And of course, you can now comment on Spotify. So if you're listening over there, hit me up with your thoughts in those comments. Thank you everyone for listening, and I'll catch you in the next one.